So recently I have been dabbling with ChatGPT, hoping that it can help with making videos by asking it to recommend video ideas, titles, tags, etc. One of the video ideas it suggested was to make a tier list ranking the characters from Resident Evil. Since this is both fun and interesting, I decided to do it. However, out of curiosity, I thought why not ask ChatGPT to rank the characters? Can it do it? And what will it come up with? The outcome was so compelling that I chose to make two tier lists. One by ChatGPT with my input and opinions, and one solely by me. But then I thought, wait, if I go over what ChatGPT came up with first, and then I say whether I agree or not with each placement and why, this takes care of both perspectives, so no need for two videos. Plus, this would be more fun, different, and interesting. So that is what I will be doing. Let's get to it then, shall we? Now first, this is what ChatGPT had to say before providing its tier list.
Ranking Resident Evil characters can be subjective, as preferences may vary among fans. Here's a tier list based on factors like popularity, contribution to the storyline, and general fan preferences. Please note that this is just one perspective, and opinions on character rankings may differ.
As you will see, some of its choices are questionable. But when you consider the criteria that it is using, some of its placements make sense. Emphasis on some. So, with that out of the way, let's see how it ended up ranking the characters. I will go from top to bottom, naming the rank, listing each character in it, and revealing the reasoning ChatGPT provided for its decision to place said character there. First up is S tier, which features Leon S. Kennedy and Jill Valentine.
S tier, iconic and beloved, Leon S. Kennedy. Popularity, one of the most beloved and iconic characters in the series. Contribution, key protagonist in multiple games, known for his cool demeanor and combat skills. Jill Valentine. Popularity, a long-standing fan favorite. Contribution, original STARS member, played a crucial role in multiple games.
Next up is A tier, which features Claire Redfield, Chris Redfield, and Ada Wong.
A tier, strong contributions. Claire Redfield. Popularity, well-loved character with a significant fan base. Contribution, important roles in Resident Evil 2 and Code. Veronica, sister to Chris Redfield. Chris Redfield. Popularity, a staple character in the series. Contribution, core member of STARS and BSAA, central to multiple storylines. Ada Wong. Popularity, intriguing and mysterious, with a strong fan following. Contribution, key character with ties to various storylines, often appearing in pivotal moments.
Moving on, we have B tier, which has Albert Wesker and Ethan Winters.
B tier, solid characters. Albert Wesker. Popularity, antagonist with a strong presence. Contribution, central villain in the series, involved in major plot twists. Ethan Winters. Popularity, gained popularity in Resident Evil 7. Contribution, protagonist in RE7 and RE Village, bringing a new perspective to the series.
Next up is C tier, which includes Sherry Birkin and Hunk.
C tier, notable, but less central. Sherry Birkin. Popularity, gained more recognition in recent titles. Contribution, key role in Resident Evil 2 and plays a part in later games. Hunk. Popularity, known for being mysterious and skilled. Contribution, mercenary with a role in multiple games, especially in side scenarios.
Up next, we got D tier, which has Sheba Alomar and Carlos Oliveira.
D tier, limited impact, Shiva Alomar. Popularity, moderately received. Contribution: partner to Chris in Resident Evil 5, providing cooperative gameplay. Carlos Oliveira. Popularity: fairly well liked but not as central. Contribution: played a role in Resident Evil 3 and had a cameo in Resident Evil 5.
And finally, we get to F tier, which features Billy Cohen and Rebecca Chambers.
F tier: lesser impact or niche appeal. Billy Cohen. Popularity: less known compared to other characters. Contribution: main character in Resident Evil 0, not as prominent in later titles. Rebecca Chambers. Popularity: limited presence. Contribution: original STARS member, but less central in later games.
So that's ChatGPT's tier list. Now it's time for me to alter it according to what I think. Though first, this is what ChatGPT had to say to close out its rankings.
This tier list is based on a combination of popularity, contribution to the storyline, and general fan preferences. Different players may have different favorites based on their experiences with specific games in the series. Tier lists indeed generate discussion, and the rankings can vary widely among the diverse Resident Evil fan base.
But back to my opinions. So, Leon and Jill can stay exactly where they are. They are definitely S-tier characters. Not only because of their popularity, which is clearly apparent in this poll I ran recently, asking which character should be the protagonist of Resident Evil 9, but also because they have a huge role in the story. They are playable in a bunch of games and they are just amazing characters. Easily two of the best in the series. Claire and Chris can also stay right where they are. Now, as much as I love them and would love to say that they are S tier, I just can't. Partially because of the poll I mentioned earlier, where it's clear that they are not as popular as Leon and Jill. Additionally, Claire simply has not had as much prominence as the other three, both in terms of story and as a playable character. Chris, on the other hand, has had more time in the spotlight when compared to his sister, but he just does not feel like a leading character, one who can carry a game or movie on his own, since every time he is a main character, Jill and or Leon are also present, preventing Chris from being the sole focus. Not to mention that in 7 and Village, Ethan remains the star, with Chris playing a secondary role. So the Redfield siblings are A tier. Ada, however, is where I have the first disagreement with ChatGPT. I feel that she does not belong in A tier, mostly because she is not on the same level as Claire and Chris. Additionally, she trails even Claire in terms of appearances and story relevance. However, she is still important and memorable enough to warrant being high up on the tier list. Just not A, and certainly not S. So for me, she is B tier. Speaking of which, next we have B tier, which is where I have one of the biggest disagreements with ChatGPT. There is just no way Wesker is B tier. He is at least A tier, though I personally would put him at S tier. Not only is he an absolute badass, arguably the coolest character in the series, but he is also the best villain/antagonist in the series, appearing in almost every game, even if only in name only, and he is almost always at least a secondary antagonist, and he is responsible for a lot of the key turning points in the series. So I say he's S tier. Ethan, however, does belong in B tier. He is one of the newest characters on this list, meaning that he does not have the history that a lot of the other characters have. He has not been around as long. he is not engraved as deeply into the franchise. Now this would normally place him lower on the list. What keeps him this high up is of course the fact that he is the protagonist and main playable character of two main games. So while he has not been a part of the franchise for very long, he definitely made his time count, which is in stark contrast to other characters who were introduced earlier and have been around for longer, but were only present in one game, thus making them less prominent and relevant than Ethan. Though of course Ethan cannot match the characters in tiers S and A, mostly because he was basically faceless for so long, making him more difficult to connect and relate to. Plus, he appears in less games, therefore he belongs in B tier for sure. I think Sherry belongs in C tier, since prior to RE6, she only appeared briefly in one game where she was not even playable. This alone would land her a lot lower on the list. Heck, she might not even be present on it at all. But her appearance as one of the main and playable characters in RE6 and the expansion to her role in RE2 with its remake, which even made her playable, allow her to land comfortably at C tier, which is sadly as high as she will go, since even one tier higher would put her on even ground with Ada and Ethan, which is not accurate. Now Hunk is a difficult one to rank, since on paper his impact on the overall narrative is minimal, and while he is playable more times than Sherry, is almost always in a side game or scenario and in Mercenaries. Additionally, he is the most enigmatic character on this list. We know so little about him that it's basically impossible to add value to him based on his personality and character. All of this means that he should be lower than C tier. What keeps him from being any lower is of course how much of a badass he is. He is just so cool. Plus he is very interesting and intriguing. You just cannot help but want to know more about him. Therefore he is at least C tier. Now part of me wants to place him even higher, namely at B tier, because he is just that iconic and awesome. But I just cannot put him on the same level as Ada and Ethan. It wouldn't feel right, so he stays at C tier. Sheva and Carlos are honestly on the same boat. They have only appeared in one game, but they were prevalent enough in said one game to make them memorable despite getting so little time to shine, and they are both characters we would not mind seeing again. Sheba of course got the most screen time, since she was present for pretty much the entirety of RE5, while Carlos appeared sporadically in RE3, though like Cherry, the remake gave him more importance, thus improving his presence. So I think that he and Sheba are basically tied. Therefore they deserve to share the same tier, which cannot be C since I don't think they are on the level of Sherry and Hunk, but it cannot be lower than D. ChatGPT did Billy dirty. I think F tier is too harsh, especially when he is basically the same as Sheba and Carlos, a one-game wonder. If anything, he was more prominent in his one game than Carlos was. So for my money, Billy should be in D tier as well. The tier of characters that only had one game, but they made good enough use of it to leave their mark on us and the franchise to the point that we wanted to see them again. Great characters that were just underutilized. Now speaking of ChatGPT doing a character dirty, it absolutely destroyed Rebecca. Probably worse than what it did to Wesker. In no universe is Rebecca at the bottom of the pile, F tier. There is just no conceivable way this is right. And she is certainly not on the same level as her RE0 co-star Billy. Now yes, at a glance, she appears to be another one-game wonder. But remember that she had an important supporting role in the first Resident Evil. Additionally, the CGI movies Vendetta and Death Island made sure to give Rebecca some much needed and deserved time to shine. Plus, being a former member of STARS gives her a lot of weight in this series. So sorry ChatGPT, but Rebecca belongs in B tier. But that's it. These are my corrections and my rankings. Though there is still one more thing that I must correct. There are a lot of characters missing here. Characters that ChatGPT did not include in its tier list for some reason. The biggest and most blatant omission is Barry Burton. For me, Barry is in C tier, mostly because he is like Sherry, appearing in only one game, one of the OG ones as a non-playable character, only to reappear a bunch of years later as one of the main and playable characters in a more modern entry of the franchise. Now I do think that Barry is more memorable than Sherry. Plus, his role in his one game as a non-playable character was bigger than hers. And he is a former member of STARS, which like I said, gives you a lot of credit in this franchise. Therefore, he could very well be in B tier. But this would make him equal to Ada, Rebecca, and Ethan, which I just don't think is true. So, in C tier, he shall stay. The other characters that I feel deserve to at least be mentioned are Ashley, Luis, Mia, Helena, Jake, Pierce, Parker, Natalia, Moira, and Jessica. All these characters only appeared in one game, except for Mia, and they were all either playable and or they were key AI companions helping you get through the game, and they were all important to the story of the given game, meaning that they were most definitely not minor side characters. So I think that they all deserve to be ranked. Now again, all of them except for Mia are one-game wonders. Therefore, they should all go in D tier, right? Well, not really. I think I would put Parker, Jessica, Moira, and Natalia one tier lower in the now empty F tier. Simply because the Revelation games, while canon, are still spin-off/side games. They are not part of the main series, and I think that the same applies to the characters unique to them, making these four have overall less importance to the franchise. Plus, I don't think they are that memorable, especially when compared to the likes of Sheba, Luis, Carlos, Jake, Mia, etc. Speaking of which, I would put Mia, Jake, and Luis in C tier. Mia has 2 games under her belt. She was playable in one of them, the Daughters DLC gave her even more focus, she is the wife of Ethan, protagonist of the 2 games she appears in, and she is the mother of Rose, who was the star of her own side story and who might reappear in the future. Plus in RE7, Mia doubles as an antagonist, since she stalks you at the beginning and she even has a boss fight. Jake is the son of Wesker, which gives him an edge over some of the other characters in terms of relevance and narrative value. Plus he was a main character in RE6, which is part of the main series, where he had his own campaign, where he was the focus. So I certainly would place him above the characters in F tier, and I would argue that he deserves to be higher than D by just a little bit. As for Luis, well, going by the logic I have used thus far, he should be in D tier, and I definitely would put him here if not for the RE4 remake, which expanded his role, importance, and prominence while also making him a much better character, and making him both playable and an AI companion. Plus, if you count the separate ways as, well, a separate experience, then he technically appears in 2 games, or 1.5 if you do not want to be that generous. So I place him in C tier. Ashley is on the same boat as Luis. She would be D tier going only by the original RE4. But the remake improved her magnificently, both in terms of character and her role in the story. So she is at least C tier. Now honestly, if this list was based entirely on personal preference, then I would probably put her on S tier. That's just how much I love her in the remake. But I must stick to the rules I set for myself. Therefore, as much as it pains me, she stays in C tier. Helena and Pierce, then, are the only ones from this extra batch of characters that do belong in D tier. They were only in 1 game, but it's a main series one where they were both playable and a main character acting as sidekicks to series giants. And they are definitely more memorable than the characters in F tier. Additionally, Chris mentions Pierce in Death Island, which adds to his importance, and Helena was very important to Leon's campaign in RE6 due to everything involving her sister. She was certainly more important to Leon's campaign than Pierce was to Chris's. Now yes, there are still a few characters missing that are playable and or appear multiple times in a game, have some value to the narrative, etc. For the sake of completeness, I will quickly rank them as well. With a minor role in RE5 and only being playable in a short expansion and Mercenaries, Josh is F tier, as are Keith and Quint, who are playable only briefly in the first Revelations, which again is not part of the main series. Additionally, I find them both quite annoying. Steve is D tier for me. He is not playable and he only has a part in Claire's campaign. However, his story is so sad, and his relationship with Claire is so endearing, that I simply cannot put him in F tier. Plus, with the Code Veronica remake hopefully in the horizon, Steve can only get better, judging by what the other remakes did for other characters. Though I guess this applies to most other characters. As for Clancy, he is definitely F tier. We know almost nothing about him, he is basically faceless, and his role is not that significant, even if he is playable. Phew, that should be every main character. Hopefully I did not miss anyone. If I did, then please let me know. So, there you have it. That's ChatGPT's tier list, which I have to say is pretty good, for the most part, all things considered, and my tier list, which is certainly bigger and more complete than ChatGPT's, and arguably better and more accurate. Like ChatGPT said, tier lists are subjective. Therefore, it's perfectly fine if you disagree with it, or with me, or with both. But if you do, then please let me know why and how in the comments down below. Also, please do drop a like if you enjoyed the video. And please do subscribe for more Resident Evil. Doing these 2 things would really help me out a lot. Additionally, down in the description I have affiliate links for GameStop, which is where I buy all my gaming related stuff, affiliate links for Amazon, which is where I buy all my stuff that is not gaming related or groceries, and a link to my Buy Me a Coffee page. These links will all allow you to support me directly if you would like to. I would very much appreciate it. Also, I have a link to my main channel where I cover Pokemon. If this is something that would interest you, then please check said channel out. Thank you so very much for watching, and I really hope to see you in the next video.